Alright, today on the channel I am going to teach you guys how to properly bend and flare brake line. Got the Packard here, and it's been giving me a little bit of a issue getting the brakes going, so got the master cylinder rebuilt. I started putting everything back together, but all of the rubber brake lines were collapsed, so I had to take those off. In the process of removing the rubber brake lines, you can see I had to cut the line off of, I had to cut the hard line off the rubber line. So now I have to replace the rubber lines and I have to replace the hard lines. So I haven't messed with the back yet. I had to cut the two front, and I've got one off the car right now. So this goes from the master cylinder to a bracket on the frame, and this is what the soft line connects to. So you can see this isn't in real terrible shape, but you know, the nut's been on and off a few times on both sides, and it's a little rusty. So while I'm waiting on the other parts to get here, I'm going to go ahead and just replace it. So what I'm going to try to do is set up the camera and show you guys how I use, this is a rigid bender, and this is a Mack double flaring kit. So a double flare kit you can get from like AutoZone or Sears, whatever. The rigid bender is a little harder to come by, but you can find one of these at AutoZone or Sears or whatever. It just isn't as nice. So this does 3 sizes. The rigid bender only does one size, 3/16, but you can also bend with this bender 180 degrees. So that's what makes that one nice. This one only does 90 degree. I don't have to do any 180 degree bending today, but I'm still going to use this bender. All right, so it's going to be kind of hard for me to get this all in frame since this piece of tubing is so long. But before you start bending anything, always remember to make sure that one end is flared and your tube nut is up against the flare. Because if you start bending this and your tube nut's down here, you might not be able to get the tube nut through your bends back to where it needs to be. So make sure that this is always at the end of your tube before you start bending. So what I'm going to do is start with the hard side first, which is going to be this sharp bend. I hope you guys can see this. So I'm going to stand up and do this, and I'll show you guys the process as I go. Alright, so right now I'm at 90 degrees. What I'll do is I'll take this line and hold it up with it and see how much further I have to go until I have the same bend. You can always bend the tube more, but you can't ever bend it back. So what I'll do is I'll take it out of the bender, I'll lay it on the table like so, and lay the other line on top of it to see how much further I have to go in the bend. So you can see our first bend is complete, like so. Now what I'll do is I'll grab a Sharpie and measure where the next bend has to start. So if you can see this laying flat on the table, that's pretty easy to bend. It's when you start having to bend in different directions. So if I was bending this 130, 90, 45 all flat, it's easy. It's when you have to start rotating the tube in the bender that it gets a little confusing. So I'm going to set the camera down, mark my next spot, and start the next bend. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm getting ready to start my second bend. You can see on here there's a 0. That's where the bend is going to start. So I line that up with the mark that I made on this tube. Make sure that I'm bending in the correct direction, which I am, and we'll start this bend. The same thing, just grab your old tube, give you an idea of how far you have to bend. All right, so So you can see we are headed in the right direction. Now the next bend has to go almost straight up. So I've marked my tube, I'll get the bender attached, and we'll start making that bend. Okay, now I actually bent this a little bit too far. This new tubing that they sell that's seamless, you can bend it by hand a little bit at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'll just put it on the table and flatten this back out just a little bit. Hold this tube back up next to it. Okay, now we're in better shape. All right, now that we have our tube cut, you can see in the end of it, there are a few burrs. So the first step is take our little deburring tool. We come in here and we just clean out the inside of the tube a little bit. And this is gonna help us when we go to flare the tube as well, so we'll have a nice crisp flare on the end of it. Like that. Now something that I always forget to do is to put the tube nut on before I start flaring this. I don't know how many times I've done it. No matter how many times I tell myself not to forget, somehow I always forget to do this step. So for the video, I'm not going to forget. This is our flare block. You can see it's got a bunch of different sizes in it. So we're doing 3/16 today. So we need to get this into the flare block, and I'll show you how to set this up as well. All right. Now because we're double flaring, we have to set this up a specific way. So, I hope you guys can see this okay. We want our tube sticking through the flare block, the thickness of the ledge on our adapter here. So you can see right now the tube isn't quite deep enough, so I'll change that and then I'll show you how to flare it. Okay, so what a double flare does is it actually bubbles out the tube and then folds the top inside of itself. And that's what this adapter does. So the first flare we make, we use this adapter that fits inside the tube. And then we take this guy. And this is how we'll make the first half of the flare. So I'm gonna have to hold this in my hand to do it, but I'll try to get it on camera as well. Now you want to press the adapter up against the flare block until it stops moving, and then back your jack screw back off. So that completes the first half of the flare. You can see how it's bubbled out on the edges. The next step is without the adapter to run this back in, and this will complete the second half of the flare. And that is our completed flare. You can see the tube nut fits up against it nicely, and I hope you guys can see this. You can see how the tube folds inside of itself. That's why they call it a double flare. It's a lot stronger than a single flare. So this is our first completed brake line compared to the factory one. I've got a couple more brake lines to cut, bend, and flare and all that stuff out here today. But I just wanted to throw this together for you guys so that you can see how to bend, cut, and flare, double flare brake line. This is 3/16. Depending on what you're working on, you might have a 1/4 inch line or something like that. Some of the newer cars are metric, so for that you need a special flaring tool. But anything old school, hot rod-ish, or if you're building a race car, is always going to be just a regular standard double flare with 3/16 or 1/4 inch tube nuts. So that's going to do it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Comment below if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.